bill seeks to create offences of corporate manslaughter.
Following the one-day public hearing on a bill for an act to create corporate manslaughter offence, Law Weekly takes a deeper look at the essence and implications of the bill. If passed into law, the bill would raise the stake of corporate responsibility as well as the duty of care to employees and customers. It's a bill that should interest you, and a labor law expert, Mr. Gani Adetola-Kaseem, a senior advocate of Nigeria, will join me shortly on the program to take a closer look at the corporate manslaughter bill. Before that conversation, though, let's do a quick recap of the top legal stories. I am Shola Soyele, and this is Law Weekly on Channels Television. Nine months after he was assaulted on the premises of the Lagos State University Teaching Hospital, Ikeja, photojournalist Benedict Walaka has testified as the first prosecution witness before a Lagos magistrate court sitting in the area.
My camera seems like I should go like that. Where is your camera now? You are able to collect my camera.
The photojournalist was assaulted and battered in the full glare of cameras while trying to take pictures during the release of the remains of victims of the Dana airline crash which occurred last year June. One of the alleged attackers, Bayo Ogunshola, a director with the TOS funerals located within the premises of the teaching hospital, is currently being tried for the assault against the photojournalist. Staying in Lagos, the trial judge, Justice Okechukwu Okeke of the Federal High Court, Lagos, last week Wednesday, withdrew from the trial of the Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly, Honorable Adeyemi Kuforiji. In a short ruling, the judge announced his withdrawal and adjourned the case indefinitely. The judge, who is retiring from the bench next month, said there were tactics by certain persons to blackmail the court. He added that his withdrawal from the case was in the interest of justice. Justice Okeke's sudden withdrawal is coming almost 3 months after he refused an application by the prosecuting agency, the EFCC, which requested that he withdraw and send the case file back to the Chief Justice for reassignment to another judge, since it was not likely that it could be completed before his retirement. In a move that was widely considered as strategic, the lead EFCC prosecutor, Mr. Godwin Obla, had withdrawn from the case, a move which frustrated Justice Okeke's insistence to continue with the trial. The Speaker of Lagos State, Honorable Kuforiji, and his personal assistant, Oyebode Atoyebi, are charged with laundering over 500 million naira public funds. From Anambra State comes a report that the Federal High Court sitting in Awka has adjourned till the 30th of April the leadership litigation between the contending factional leaders of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, APGA. The Maxi Oku faction had applied to the court to vacate an order of the same court which favored the Victor Ome faction. The court had ordered Oku and other winners of the party's national convention of April 8 to stop parading themselves as the national officers of APGA. Following the inability of the parties to agree on the representatives of the party, presiding Judge Mohammed Salisu had to adjourn the case. Another case of public interest also stalled is that of the convicted former director in the Police Pension Office, Mr. John Yakubu. He's filed an application alleging double jeopardy and a challenge of the jurisdiction of the Federal High Court, Abuja. The EFCC has described the application as a move aimed at delaying prosecution, but Mr. Yakubu says that the determination of the issues raised could dispose of the trial if granted in his favor. On the 16th of May, the parties will adopt their documents in support or against the application, and trial judge Adamu Bello will eventually have to decide if the application has merit. The former police pension boss, after paying a 750,000 naira fine on conviction for complicity in the diversion of police pension funds, is now facing a 4-count charge of failing to declare all his assets as a civil servant. Away from the courts, the National Judicial Council, NJC, has suspended Justice Abubakar Tauba of the Federal High Court for a period of 12 months without pay. The NJC, after its initial findings, suspended the judge on the basis that he did not exercise judicially and judiciously his discretion with regard to the sentence he passed after convicting John Yakubu, the former deputy director of the Police Pension Office. It was, however, a narrow escape for Justice Okechukwu Okeke, who just withdrew from handling the case against the Lagos Speaker and who is due to retire on the 18th of May. The NJC considered his response to several petitions written against him and decided to warn him seriously. At the next sitting of the NJC in June, the council will consider other petitions written against 18 other judges across the country.
Every day you invite us to your home. Now we invite you to our homepage. Join Channels TV on social media. Hang out with us on Google Plus/Channels Television. Follow us on Twitter.com/Channels TV_NG. Friend us on Facebook.com/Channels Forum. And don't forget to like our page. That's not all. Subscribe to our YouTube channels, youtube.com/Channels Web, to get constant video updates on news and events in Nigeria and around the world. ChannelsTV.com, the news at your fingertips.
Welcome back. This next report is a background on the moves to create the corporate manslaughter offence, after which we will be joined on the program by Mr. Adetola-Kaseem.
Horror. That's the word that best describes the tragic fire incident which killed 45 workers of the West African Rubber Products Company Nigeria Limited, Odogunyo, Ikorodu area of Lagos State in 2002. The workers reportedly died in the night inferno because the Chinese owners of the company went home to sleep and allegedly locked the gates against the workers after closing hours. Although members of the National Assembly and Lagos State House of Assembly visited the factory along with some officials of the Federal Ministry of Labour at the time, 11 years later, nothing concrete has happened by way of implementing the reports of the various government agencies which investigated the fire incident at the time. In 2008, a toxic chemical allegedly mixed into a feeding medicine for babies killed at least 70 Nigerian children. According to the officials of the Health Ministry at the time, a batch of the mixture My Pikin, which went on sale, contained diethylene glycol, an industrial solvent, and an ingredient in antifreeze and brake fluid.
The only way we fault him is that he should have analytical technique to recheck his active ingredients and the vehicles and his excipients before even he starts production.
We just arraigned the manufacturers of that My Pikin teaching mixture. As we promised that we are going to zealously prosecute people who manufacture products that cause death or injure Nigerians, this is the promise being fulfilled today.
Fast forward to 2012. Who can forget so soon the Dana Air Flight 992, which crashed in the Iju-Ishaga area of Lagos, which killed all 153 persons on board the flight from Abuja to Lagos. Some people believe that the crash may have been caused by dual engine failure and a subsequent forced landing. Indeed, Nigerians across all sectors of the economy have increasingly become more endangered and prone to avoidable industrial accidents. While some lose their lives, some others lose vital organs, which renders them permanently incapacitated. It is against this background that some concerned parties have called for a law to subject corporate organizations and government agencies to criminal liability. The bill, entitled A Bill for an Act to create the offence of corporate manslaughter and matters incidental therein 2013, was sponsored by Senator Pius Ewerido of Delta State. The bill seeks to create offences of corporate manslaughter and make corporate bodies, entities and agencies culpable for willful acts of negligence, dereliction of duty and/or gross incompetence which results in the death of a person or persons.
Mr. Gani Adetola-Kaseem is a self-developed man. Despite not attending secondary school, he trained himself, passed his O and A levels, and subsequently graduated in 1979 with second-class honors at the Faculty of Law, University of Lagos. He obtained his LLM from the same university and passed his bar examinations also in a second-class upper. He worked in public service and retired voluntarily as an undersecretary after 15 years. He established his law firm immediately he retired and has engaged in extensive litigation work at all levels of court throughout the country. This senior advocate of Nigeria, amongst other things, is an expert in cases of employment, labor and industrial relations. He joins me on the program now to take a closer look at the corporate manslaughter bill.
Thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you.
Now, last week, Monday, there was a public hearing on a bill on corporate manslaughter. We've heard that it was sponsored by one of the senators, and there's been so many reasons. It's to make corporate organizations more responsible, liable for their activities, and it's to protect the customers. Now, let me start by getting your first impressions about the bill.
Well, it's to the extent that it's the first time such a bill is being introduced in this jurisdiction, one would say it's novel. But that is not to say that similar statutes do not exist in other jurisdictions. In the UK, it has been in existence for some 10 years or more. The US, Hong Kong, and I think New Zealand is probably introducing a similar bill now. But even in these jurisdictions where these bills or where these laws exist, we know that the rate of prosecution has been rather slow. And that's understandable.
In those other jurisdictions?
Yes, even in those, I mean, in England, I was trying to read a piece there that over a period of something, probably you have just 2 prosecutions. And now just lately that you have something about 5 cases in courts here and there. But even if you find these cases affect small scale organizations, small private companies, not the big ones. So that, because I think the difficulty actually will be in the enforcement of the law and what is intended to achieve. Right now, there are, of course, corporate organizations have, there are a number of laws that fix their responsibility, civil responsibility in respect of their affairs.
Even in Nigeria?
In Nigeria, of course, you have, for example, Employees Compensation Act. Okay, is what used to be Workers' Compensation Act. If somebody, if a worker or a staff of a company got injured in the course of his duties, is compensated, and the rates are there, and so on and so forth. Also, there are other things like occupiers' liability. You have a premises, and you are negligent in the way you have your instruments or this. Okay? It could affect, I mean, you could be made liable, the company could be made liable if anybody suffers injury or deaths in the course of, I mean, for visiting the company or for working there. So we have this series of something which already affect, which fix these organizations with civil liability. Now, to criminalize the activities of companies is different. You see, don't forget, it's different from the individuals that run the company, the management, because a company is different from its owners. Okay, so that if you now say that corporate manslaughter, that you are saying that the company itself has committed an offense of manslaughter, which is unlawful killing, involuntary unlawful killing. So how do you separate the company in that something from the who run the company? Yes. For example, somebody must have taken a decision or must have been negligent in failing to do certain things that results in the death of any individual. It could be a worker, it could be somebody else. Outside the company. Well, you take the case of the airlines, the incident which is the most popular one, I mean, that at least in living memory. Somebody took a decision, and it could be that it was careless, was negligent. And then now, you now say, okay, the company should be charged for manslaughter. Now, what happens? The company, of course, has no limbs, no head, no womb of its own. It has to operate through human beings.
So are you saying there's no need for the bill?
I'm receiving the concept with mixed feelings.
Mixed feelings, okay.
With mixed feelings. It's not neither for or against, seriously speaking.
Why?
Well, because I know that it's all right to put it in place. You may be talking about, okay, to serve as a deterrence to something, or to probably make the companies, organizations to be alive to their responsibility and so on and so forth. But I don't, it's the enforcement side and how that I have problem with. Okay. And in our climb, don't forget that, fortunately with us, a lot of things, a lot of water passes under the bridge. When big companies get involved in such things, who bears the cat? How do we enforce?
And you've also cited the case of other jurisdictions who also have had challenges
against big companies. So these are the things. So you find that it may be all right on paper, but I think the law should really be strengthened in relation to management of the company, as distinct from the company itself. Because the best in any case, even if you charge the company, of course, it's not to say that a company cannot commit an offense, cannot be charged for an offense for committing an offense. But the maximum you get in respect of the company as company is a fine. You can impose a fine. You can't send the company to jail. Because it's not a person, it's not an individual. It's not so. So at the end of the day, I think is perhaps if you do that, well, because the financial burden will not be less on the company, and so the owners of the company and the management may be more careful.
Now, I've heard you talk about civil responsibilities. You cited the Workman's Compensation Act, the Occupier's Liability Act as civil remedies, that are widely available. Now, will punishing the company and those directly responsible for the decisions not amount to double punishment?
In fact, I think because at the end of the day, any criminal prosecution, at least in our current legal jurisprudence in this country, does not necessarily result in direct compensation to the victim or relations of the victim. But it's a matter between the state and the tortfeasor, whoever must have committed the offense. All right? But that does not satisfy the loss that must have been suffered by the victim or the relations. So I think the emphasis again, that's why I was a bit skeptical about it, should be on to raise the bar of compensation to the victims.
Now, some people will push the argument further and say that even with regards to the air crashes that we've had in the country, they can't restore lives, sadly so, but that when we hear that some form of compensation is being paid to the victims, does it not equal or amount to the fact that the companies are serving some kind of punishment anyway? No. What gives compensation to the victim is not the criminal law. Okay. It is the international regulations and the law regulating civil aviation, for example. Okay. Which is international. Which is international in respect of airlines. But there could be other companies that are not of international character. All right, you may not have international regulations in place, or you may not have any specific regulatory authority. Although for every bit there is some sort of regulatory authority, but how these authorities actually perform their duties and how effective they are is a different matter. For example, in the case of manufacturing company, you have the Factories Act, which laid down how factories are run, the type of equipment, and so on and so forth, and the penalty for doing this. But usually the problem has always been in the enforcement. Don't forget, with all due respect to our national interest and whatever anybody may say, the cankerworm of corruption is having its effect on all this. Like I said, small companies get punished because they cannot pay their way. But the good ones which have the resources, and the thing is gone. Now, if this corporate manslaughter bill gets passed into law, what will be the effect on the shareholders of corporate organizations who don't participate in the day-to-day running of the organizations?
That's another thing. We must look at critically. In fact, those are some of the side effects we look at, and even under institution where this law now exists. That there are a lot of stakeholders in this company that do not have anything to do or do not have anything directly to do with whatever has happened because they do not participate in the decision-making process. These have been delegated to some people, management, so that is. So the shareholders, even some of the directors who are not executive directors do not participate actively in the decision-making process. So you have quite a number, and even the patrons of the various companies, and even the customers, those who would come in. You see, the effect is to raise prices and costs to the consumers.
So they indirectly transfer it back?
Yes, and transfer, of course, yes. If they incur such expenses, they will transfer it back. They cannot. They are business to make profit. So whatever loss they have suffered by way of fines imposed on the company or compensation paid to victims of their negligence of course they will transfer it back to the customers. The shareholders will lose out of it because it will affect their profitability. And then once it does, of course, so those are side issues. So I think, to be honest with you, in our own environment, yes, we know that a lot of things go wrong. In the corporate world, a lot of things, when people just, anything goes. Maybe this is, we might have been intended to ensure that everything does not go the way the people make it to go. So to that extent, it's a welcome development. But when you look at the other side of it, one, the enforcement, the difficulty in enforcement, and the consequence on stakeholders of these corporate organizations, particularly if we don't have, it's not just a one-man company, a small limited, which we have one person running and everything. If we have a public liability company, for example, you have a lot of shareholders who have nothing to do with the management of the company. They are going to suffer. Even the staff who do not themselves something, because directly in the decision-making process, will also suffer.
Now, is there any way around that?
I would rather that we don't criminalize manslaughter in respect of corporate organizations. I would rather that we restrict it to individuals who took such decisions that result in the death of another, even though if it's an involuntary thing. So that if you have a big, because there was a case even in the UK, once, because you have this burden, rather than having the alter ego of the company being prosecuted, they pleaded guilty. The company pleaded guilty in order to be able to pay off fine, and then the man is let off. But if the penalty had been limited to the individual that takes the decision, the managing director, the line managers that the decision can be directly traced to, prosecuted and convicted. Of course, people will be more, because, like I said, a company has no limbs, no hands of its own to do anything, no soul of its own. People have to, actual individuals. But why don't you focus on these individuals and ensure that anything that happens, they are held personally liable? So in future, people will be more careful in whatever decision they take when they know that they are going to be. It doesn't matter to anybody. For example, if you say the company is going to do something and it's just it's an employee himself, the decision and the company goes under, it goes elsewhere. But if the individual that takes decision are made liable for responsible for their acts, of course, it will bear more meaning to me. In any case, manslaughter is something that you have to have an intention to do something. A company as a company, as defined by law, like I said, because it has no body, no soul, no hands, something, what intention will you have?
But it appears that this is what obtains now.
The criminal something here could be raised a little bit more direct, not the general criminal law. With respect to certain activities or something that are prone to this type of thing, you can increase the penalty. You can increase the criminal liability and the penalty that go with it, which as far as the management and those who took the decision concerned. For example, if, with all due respect, I'm not indicting anybody, but if an airline, for example, took a decision to fly an aircraft that is effectively faulty, and somebody took that decision, okay, you must, even if the pilot were willing or not, he said, look, just get it through. When you get there, we'll go and look at it. Somebody took that decision, and you can pin it down to him. He's prosecuted for taking the decision, and is convicted. So in future, somebody in that line, in the shoes, would probably be reluctant to take such decision. Will take extra care to ensure that the decision will affect life. You'll be more careful in whatever decision it takes in taking a decision, that because life has no replacement, and you don't. Accidents will occur from time to time, but I think the more care people take in taking decisions will reduce the incidence of accidents.
We've also heard that this bill was intended to affect not only private corporate organizations, but also government agencies, MDAs, parastatals, and all of that. And the NPA has come out to oppose it and say, even though yes, some government agencies can be liable for stuff like that, but perhaps we should limit it to private corporate organizations and not include government. What do you think of that?
If that is the suggestion of the MPA, Ordinarily, we are part of it. Whatever, if our leadership has taken a decision, we should support it. But I think, with all due respect to the leadership of the NBA, I will disagree. Because I think that is in fact an area in which there should be no discrimination, apart from the issue of constitutionality. I think, in fact, a lot of things happen in the public sector. A lot of impunity happens there, and I think there must be a way of stopping it. People believe that once they're there, they can do anything, anything goes, irrespective of the consequence on third parties. So I don't see why ministries, departments, agencies of government, or other organizations should be exempted from such penalty or from such something if it is enacted. I think everybody should be treated equally, whether private organization or public sector organizations. In fact, you have a lot of commercial activities going on also in the public service. So if you now say any public institution could be exempted from prosecution for such serious acts, then you are simply giving them the license to do what they like. I don't think I agree.
What do you make of the provision fixing conviction limits?
I don't think there should be any upper limit. You could say not below, so that the discretion of the judge or something is not left at large, because sometimes some people can be ridiculous. I'm sorry, with all due respect to their lordship or whoever is presiding. We've seen a few cases that people just abuse the discretion they're supposed to have. You could put a ceiling at the lower limit, but the upper limit should be left something, so that, because it should be, when talking about deterrence, you should be able to relate the punishment to the gravity of the offense. So if you fetter that limit at that, that's on that stage, then of course, even because you know that a company, like we said, we have all appreciate, cannot be sent to jail. So the only thing that can really deter them, that can weigh on them, is the penalty that is imposed. So the penalty should be such a fine that will relate to the incident. For example, talking about an airline that flew a plane that ought not to be flown, and say 200 people got killed, and you want to penalize, you now say, okay, 1 million naira should be a penalty. What does it matter to something? So that's it.
That's the program for today. If you missed any part of it, you can watch on our YouTube page. For questions and comments, please get in touch via the addresses on the screen. I'm Shola Soyele. Thank you for watching.